So, I hear you're ready for your next vehicle, and you're unsure of whether you want to lease or finance. See, the best way to purchase your next vehicle is to do a lease, and will save you the most amount of money. So, there's a lot of benefits with leasing. So first off, you're going to have lower monthly payments because you're only paying for a portion of the car compared to the whole car. As well, you're not paying as much tax. So when you're financing, you're paying tax on the whole total of the vehicle. But when you're leasing, you're only paying tax on the payments. And because you're already paying for less of the vehicle, you're paying less tax. As well, most manufacturers will offer a lower interest rate with leasing. And the nice thing is you're not married to any collision. So let's say your vehicle gets into a $15,000 collision and you're now stuck with the vehicle. Usually it ends up depreciating, but in this case the collision stays with the vehicle, and when you're done with it, you can wipe your hands and there's no more issues with it, and you can move on to your next car. You also have built-in gap insurance. Now, what's gap insurance? Let's say your car is in a finance and it's written off, and you owe $20,000 on your car. And unfortunately, your car through AutoPack is only worth $15,000. You owe that $5,000 to your loan that has to be paid off. With gap insurance, which usually costs a few $1,000s when you finance a vehicle, you don't have to pay that, and gap insurance covers it. With leasing, you don't have to worry about covering any extra costs, because if the car is written off, you hand the keys back to the dealership, and it's no longer your problem. It's the dealership's problem. As well, it gives you options. So for instance, let's say you have a sedan and suddenly you're pregnant with twins and you need a bigger vehicle because you won't be able to fit 2 car seats comfortably in the back. With leasing, it's easier to switch into another vehicle because let's say you now need a van because you have kids, you have soccer practice, everything's gotten crazy and wild. You can now switch into a different vehicle, and you can move into that van easily. Whereas with a loan, let's say your loan is worth more than the car is, you have this extra money that has to go onto your next loan. Now I'm going to give you an example of that. Let's say I had a customer who had a 2014 vehicle that will not be stated. She owed $20,000 on her vehicle. What ended up happening was she wanted to get out of her vehicle into something different. Her vehicle was only worth $7,000. So there's $13,000 left that needs to be paid. What ends up happening is that $13,000 gets moved on to the next loan. So your new $20,000 car is now worth $33,000. And unfortunately, you have to pay more. So that's the nice thing about leasing, is you don't have that negative equity. You can usually just switch into another vehicle because around the halfway point, your car is worth what your buyout is for most manufacturers. Or if there's a little bit of negative equity, as we call it, it's very small and you don't have such a big difference. As well, you have a low cost of ownership. So when you finance a vehicle, usually people will keep them, they say, for 5 years, and they'll do a 7-year lease. That's what Auto123 says for the Canadian statistics through a survey, is that the Canadian, as I had said, will have a car for 5 years and usually takes out a 7-year finance. Usually when you have a car for, around that 5-year mark, what ends up happening is you have to replace tires and you have to replace brakes, and the cost can go up. Sometimes, depending on your driving habits, if you're a heavy driver, you might have to replace more features. When you're leasing, you have the car for a shorter amount of time, so you never have to worry about paying for maintenance because you're constantly moving into a different vehicle. Now, here's an example. My father has been leasing since 2007. The one thing that he really likes about it is because he's a realtor, he can write off a bigger portion on his income taxes. So if you yourself have the opportunity to write off, you'll have more money back on your income taxes. He also has the ability to switch between vehicles. As he's gotten older, being in a car is not suitable for him, so he's moved into an SUV because it's easier for him to get in and out of. With leasing, as I mentioned earlier, you have more options. Another thing is affordability. So once again, the payments are lower, he has a lower interest rate, and less money to put out through cost of ownership. And the nice thing too is, as I mentioned before, he doesn't have to worry about big repair bills, so it's easy and simple for him. I realize that the consumer likes to own their vehicles, but I believe that they don't really need to own their vehicles. So people prefer to own their cars because it's a mental thing to own, but is it really worth it to pay more money just so you own a vehicle. And at the end of the day, do you really own the car if it's financed? Truthfully, the bank owns your vehicle until it's fully paid off. So these are some things to consider as well. So here's an example. Let's say a car is worth $20,000. When you finance it, you have $20,000 plus the 13%. So you're paying over $21,000 for the vehicle, split up into payments at, let's say, a rate of 3.99. Let's say the payment is $250 bi-weekly. Now, if we look at a lease, that $20,000 becomes $10,000 because you're only taking out for half the vehicle. As well, you're only paying taxes on that payment that you're making, so the taxes are lower. So let's say at an interest rate of 2.99, at a lower rate, your payments are $200. So as you can see, there's that difference in payments to make life a little bit easier for you. Many people might think that leasing is the more expensive option, but in reality, financing is. So when you look at it, once again, dollars and cents, you're saving money on payments, on interest, on taxes, and as well on maintenance that you have. So once again, leasing is the cheaper option. I know that some people, for instance, at the end of the lease might really love their car and they want to keep it and don't want to buy it out. They still have the option to do so. Predetermined when they sign their contract, there's a buyout. So let's say the vehicle at the end of the contract is worth $7,000. Dealerships will offer low interest rates to finance it. So let's say if you were to look at leasing the vehicle and then buying it out, compared to financing, at the end of the day, you are still saving more money on leasing and buying out than financing. So you still have that option to switch into a different vehicle. Every year there's new features and technologies coming out, so people really appreciate the new safety features. So, if you're really someone that's keen on safety for your kids or your own family, and a great new feature comes out, why wouldn't you want to have it? Why would you be restricted because you're stuck in a finance when you're in a lease and have more availability to switch into another vehicle? So in conclusion, leasing is a better option because A, you save more money, B, you have more options, and C, it has built-in gap insurance. So if you're unsure of whether you want to lease or finance a vehicle, the best way to purchase your next car is through a lease. Now, I'm open for any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The PST in Manitoba is going down to 7% on July the 1st.
Yeah.
So should I wait to consider purchasing or leasing a car till July the 1st?
So one thing that dealerships are doing is because every month there's quotas to hit. For instance, my dealership, we are willing to honor that 1% reduction. Of course, you will still be paying that 13% in tax per se, but what ends up happening is on a finance, you're stuck in that 13%, whereas in a lease, once it goes down, the interest rate, your taxes will go down in the lease. So if you're at 13% now when you sign, dealerships usually will have an incentive to get you to do it now, so they'll save money there. And then in July, once the taxes drop, you'll be paying 12% on your payments, so you have the option there. Whereas with the finance, you're stuck in that 13% no matter what. So with the lease, you will be paying less.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that leasing is best for your next car. Would you also suggest this for one's first car?
Yes, so a nice thing with leasing is when you're a student, especially for yourself, is there lower payments and you're not stuck to a vehicle. So it's nice because you won't require money for maintenance, whereas if you were to buy a 2005 Toyota Corolla, it's probably a little bit beat up and you have to put money into it. Whereas when you lease a new vehicle, you can save that money in the bank and collect interest that you're going to pay for your new vehicle, have low payments and low interest rates, and be able to have more options in the future once you graduate.
Okay.
Yes?
With new cars, when you purchase a car and finance it, they talk about an extended warranty, purchasing extended warranties. So giving you an extra 3 or 4 years to cover the cost of repairs. And you said with leasing, that's not an issue. But if you buy the extended warranty, wouldn't that put you in the same place as a lease?
Of course, but you'll be paying more dollars and cents at the end of the day. Let's say you finance a vehicle and want to have that extended warranty past, the 3 years comprehensive and 5-year powertrain. You'll be paying a premium for that. With leasing, because you're leasing the vehicle, let's say for 4 years, you'll always have that powertrain warranty, and you'll have that little gap sometimes with comprehensive, depending on the dealership. Some dealerships offer 4 years, so if you're in that 4-year lease, you're fully covered the whole time. So the nice thing is, if you're looking for warranty, you can buy at a really low cost a warranty for the vehicle on a lease, whereas with a finance, you'll be paying a premium. Anyways, thank you very much for your time. I hope I answered all your questions, and have a great week.